Jazakallah, Brother Shaukat Bhai. As you can see, I have a face for radio. So yes, my honourable scholars, respected elders, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Oh, come on, you've had some food. Let's try that again, shall we? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You know, I often find myself thinking, I'm here in the presence of such, honourable people, scholars, teachers, leaders, and then there's me. So I'm just thinking, how do I get here? But alhamdulillah, I've had the great pleasure of knowing Brother Muhammad Uwais and his family for 10 years now. We were actually companions together in Hajj, and I have a lot of love for him. So when he asked me to support him, there was only one answer I could give, which was yes. So inshallah, with your support and your prayers and your contributions, I'm very confident that whatever he does taking this organization forward will be a great success. So Jazakumullah khairun for your participation this afternoon. Now, as Brother Shaukat Bhai alluded to, I had the opportunity yesterday to sit down and interview Imran Dawood and his uncle Yusuf Dawood, along with their advocate, Brother Suresh Grover. And before we play the video of that interview, I just want to give a bit of context as to what happened and set the scene somewhat before we see the video. So, on the 28th of February 2023, it marked the 21st anniversary of the carnage in Gujarat. Although official bodies continue to describe the mass violence against Muslims as riots, we know that British government's own secret report viewed these events as ethnic cleansing. The report was first aired last month in a BBC documentary titled The Modi Question. The two-part documentary is about the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his relationship with the Muslim community in India. The first part covers Modi's early political career and his role in the 2002 events, which took place when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. It discusses documents found by the BBC, including a UK government report stating that the violence in Gujarat showed all the hallmarks of ethnic cleansing. The second part of the documentary examines Modi's rise to power as the Prime Minister in 2014 and his re-election in 2019. It covers some of his policies, including on the revocation of the Kashmir autonomy and the new citizen laws, both directed against the Muslim minority. It also depicts lynching and the violent response to protests against the new laws and the aftermath of the 2020 Delhi anti-Muslim riots. The Indian government has used emergency legal powers to ban the documentary from being screened and forced social media sites globally to take down any clips of the documentary shared by users. One of the families strongly features in the documentary is the Dawood family from Yorkshire, who were visiting India in 2002. On the 28th of February 2002, as the mass violence engulfed Gujarat, Imran Dawood and his UK-based uncles Saeed Dawood, Shakil Dawood and Muhammad Aswad were attacked by a violent mob on the highway near Prantij. Saeed, Shakil, Muhammad and their driver Yusuf Piragar, a local, were burnt alive, but Imran managed to survive. Upon hearing the news, Imran's uncle Yusuf flew to India to look for his loved ones. Soon after, the family established a justice campaign that has taken extraordinary steps in the hope of getting justice and accountability. That just gives you a background and a bit of context as to what happened. And if I could ask Brother Ibrahim to play the video now, we'll see a few questions that I asked the pair and their responses. So if you could please listen with your attention and take in what they say. Thank you.
So I suppose my first question is to you, Imran Bhai. You were obviously a victim of this terrible violence, and we would like to know what's it been like for you and how have you managed to remain strong for the last 21 years?
Jazakallah Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In regards to your question, how have I managed to remain strong? First and foremost, it's not losing hope in Allah. That's the first thing. This has been obviously a journey for the last 21 years for seeking justice for what happened to myself, my uncles, all the victims of the Gujarat pogrom in 2002. And alhamdulillah, Allah has given me a voice in seeking justice for the victims. And inshallah, Allah will deliver this. That's where my hope is.
Inshallah. Okay, thank you. And just moving on from that, and the recent BBC documentary where you gave your first interview, your first public interview. Following on from that, how hopeful are you for the future?
Well, the BBC documentary was there to show what Modi has done in 2002. But this is not just something from then; it's something which is been ingrained in the mindset from a young age. It is something that has been planned and been executed. And the Gujarat 2002, the BBC documentary, brings the truth to 2023. It brings what happened. It shows that there were reports. Modi was implicit in his actions. And this is something not just happened over 3 days. It was occurrence in the following months as well. The figures, what we have in regards to what India has given us, are very false. I would say, this is my opinion, I would times it by 3 or 4, if not 5. Just, in regards to how they do deliver those numbers. But anyway, so the BBC documentary is something which brings it to the present time. We have a virus now which is infestating, even in Leicester, here in the USA. I believe I heard a story whilst I was here, when bulldozers were paraded on Independence Day, or Indian Independence Day, in January, in New York, in Newark, and this just goes to show this virus, how it is infestating us locally, nationally, and globally. So we have to unite in this cause, in this matter, to tackle this virus, because if we don't, we will be affected by it shortly. This is something that is going to affect us, and clearly Leicester is a perfect example of this. Also, referring to your first question, how have I coped? I've coped by having good people around me, alhamdulillah. I've also, I've written poetry in regards to what I've experienced, and alhamdulillah, I may have been suppressed to have read my poetry locally in Batley, but alhamdulillah, Allah has provided me a journey where I've been able to come to Newark, New York, and alhamdulillah, I've been able to read a poem on bulldozers. So alhamdulillah, this is something which for our cause is very, very, very significant, because Allah doesn't Allah will guide us, Allah will show us a path, but I think we just do not settle with settling for something which we have to accept. No, we don't have to accept it. We can we can challenge it. We ask Allah, and Allah will provide us way. So,
Thank you very much. If I could bring Yusuf into the conversation now, casting your mind back to when these events took place over 20 years ago, and you and the family first heard about the situation there. Naturally, you wanted to go over there and see what you could do to support and help. Can you just give us a flavor or an insight and a description of what you experienced when you arrived in India to help Imran? What did you see? What did you do? What was it like?
Sure. Assalamu
Alaikum.
So February 28th, 2002, cast your mind back. That was very shortly after Eid that the events took place. Now, February 28th is when the events took place. It wasn't up until around about August, September of that year that we were informed that Said and Sakil had actually been killed. So in terms of the timeline, it's quite an extended timeline where they were actually considered to be missing persons. So when we went to India, very soon after the events took place, we actually went there with a family friend called Bhaskar Solanki. He's a Hindu gentleman who lives in Leicester, and he was a BBC cameraman. And we went with him and with Richard Bilton to India. With myself was Imran's older brother, Ismail. And we went there to find out, to find our family members and hopefully to find them alive. We were hoping that they may be disorientated, they may be lying low. Maybe they're in one of the refugee camps where, there were upwards of 100,000 people displaced. So we went there with a sense of foreboding and also a sense of hope that we are actually going to find our loved ones. And upon arriving in India, we went into Mumbai. We met with senior police officials there, as well as the British Deputy High Commissioner. We had a number of meetings there. And then from there, we went on to Gujarat. The meetings we had with the police seemed to be rather strange because their body language seemed very odd. They were disinterested. In addition to that, the big thing for us was when we got to our Aunt Restful home and we met with our family, saw Imran for the first time, saw the emotion on everybody, and there was a real sense in the air that this was like hell on earth, because at that time the reports, these are, when you're there, they're not reports, they're not things that you read in black and white. These are things which you're actually to a certain extent you're seeing firsthand. And the thing that really struck me was the beastly behavior, the beastly and ghastly behavior of the culprits across the board. Mass rapes of Muslim women, people being burned alive, and when you're there, you're taking in everything because you're trying to find a way through all of that to find your loved ones. So that experience had a multitude of different things, but there was one part of us which was to be very professional, to actually survey everything, to look at everything that's there, and to push along this process to continue, what was then a missing persons case. So it just really unbelievable, extreme emotions. Also, we met so many human rights defenders as well from across the communities, seeing their energy, the way in which they were working tirelessly to protect people. I would describe going to India in March 2002 as an experience where personally, I feel like I've experienced the worst of humanity and also the best of humanity, both at the same time. And with that in mind, it was, really impressed upon us that we should, try to help, the people that cannot help ourselves. And going to India instilled a strong sense of responsibility to, highlight what has happened, because what we did experience and see is something that, one should never, ever forget. It's and if we do forget, it's, it's the most abhorrent thing, for us to even consider, letting this go down in history, and letting the spin doctors, get away with spinning this around. So that's very important, because there's been a concerted effort to whitewash this. People have written books to whitewash what's happening in Gujarat. And, we need to make sure that we keep, the reality alive, and that we actually learn from this and help all the other victims, because there are people in Gujarat that I saw who are in such destitute situations, and, what has happened to them over the last 10 or 20 years? Where has civil society been? Where has been outrage amongst our community? So, we do this, to shed light on our responsibilities for the community at large. We don't necessarily do this for us, for sympathy or any of those things for us. This is because what we've seen has changed us, and we want the world to actually, honor the victims. We want the world to say that it was wrong to commit mass rapes against Muslim women. We want the world to actually, do something about this, and, not let this truth and this haqq to dissipate, and to allow the hypocrites to come in and whitewash the truth. So, the experiences we've had there in that time period were profound, and they were deep, and they were especially deep because we were on a quest we were on a missing persons journey at that stage. So we were very, switched on to everything that was happening around us and absorbing everything as well.
So you and the family decided to set up this family campaign. I'd like you to sort of just explain, and we'd like to understand a bit more around the reasons why you decided to set up this campaign and what has been done to date.
Sure. I hope I gave you some context before in terms of the timescales and why we went to India. And essentially, the Family Justice Campaign started from there. It wasn't some kind of, how would you say, clandestine gathering of people to create some campaign. It was actually our actual experience of knowing that Muhammad Aswat has been Shaheed, Yusuf is Shaheed, Imran has survived, not knowing what's happened to Sayyid and Sakil, and wanting to go there to find them. That was how the Justice Campaign started. The BBC went out with us as part of a missing persons thing. Richard Bilton came out with us on that basis. So in that time, the idea was, well, actually, if these guys are missing, then, given, our, BAME background, how seriously will it be taken? And it was considered, well, actually, they'll take it more seriously if there's more media attention. So therefore, it was important to bring the media attention in order to help find our family members who we hope were alive and disorientated in one of the camps. From there, then experiencing what's happened to so many people, the killings, the burnings, the mass rapes of Muslim women, as a human being, and not just me, other people, so many people, if that doesn't affect your heart in terms of going from passivism and knowledge to activism, then one has to question one's, humanity. So from there, we started. It wasn't essentially, it happened organically. It happened through the events that had happened to us, and it happened with us processing everything that had gone on and trying to find actual, a healthy and an effective way to go forward. Now, for many, many months, we were getting so many phone calls. We were trying to figure out what to do with lawyers, try to do all of those things. And a lot of groups and organizations were trying to say, well, we can support you. But we didn't feel that in our hearts, we didn't feel the connection was there. And then, we spoke with Suresh Bhai. At that point, it was maybe, a couple of months afterwards. And, Suresh Bhai, he understood. And the conversation we had, we felt that we were on the same page. And it also was really helpful that at that point, when we first spoke, after I put the phone down, I was in Cambridge at the time, I put the phone down and I felt this palpable sense of relief that I can start handing over. I can start, not just myself, we can now start, just taking the intensity down. This experience has to be replicated going forward because there are so many victims that won't have the resource that we have been blessed to have had. But the strategy of having advocacy, where you actually have a clearly defined political strategy, where you have a clearly defined media strategy, where you have a campaign strategy, where you have people with skills and expertise, is so essential. It's a bit like, asking a doctor to perform surgery and then giving him, a mullet. That's essentially how we've been working to date.
Well, thank you very much for your time this afternoon and evening. Before we go ahead, Imran.
One more thing, just before you go, I just want to say that also this attacks that have been happening and are still happening are not just affecting Muslims now. This is a problem which is affecting minorities, Dalits, and also actually affecting people from upper castes as well. So it's not something which is quite unique to just Muslims. It's across the board. So it's something which is quite relevant as well in regards to uniting with these people as well. Because if we don't unite, we will not get the outcome Allah has planned for us. So I think uniting is important, and I'm sure with the guests today, you'll be hearing Karguzari, the stories of what's been happening in India, not just to Muslims but to the minorities as well, and also the Christians. And this is something which is a worry, even as a Muslim. That these things are happening. Well, thank you, Muhammad, for listening to myself and my uncle Yusuf, and Jazakallah.
Thank you for your time. Just before we go, Brother Suresh, is there a final message you would like to share with those that are present at the conference today?
Assalamu alaikum to everyone in the conference. First of all, I hope you have a productive and a much needed constructive discussion and a strategy to build the Indian Muslim Council in the UK. The message I have is, not only do we support individual victims, and we have a duty to do that, but there are, in Gujarat, 2,000 Imran Dawuds and Saeed Dawuds and Shakil Dawuds and Yusuf Dawuds. We are British citizens, and we've had some kind of help from the media. But the people in Gujarat have had absolutely no support structures, publicity, and if they have, and when people have come to their aid, the human rights defenders, lawyers, they too, even police officers who become whistleblowers, they too have been criminalized, and the legislation has been used against them. And we have to redouble our efforts. We cannot, despite the scale of the violence, we cannot be defeated. I am a Hindu, but I believe I have a duty. I must ensure 100 times more than anybody else that Modi and the RSS do not speak for me. And India will not be free if Muslims, Christians do not feel free and have the freedom to express religiously, politically, socially, economically.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up there. But thank you so much for your time today, and we wish you all the best. Assalamu alaikum.